Newsmaker Sunday with Fox 10's John Hook.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker Sunday. If you needed any more evidence of how dangerous the border has become, the third Border Patrol agent killed this year in the line of duty. It happened this week. Brian Terry, 40 years old, 3 other agents fired upon, and Brian Terry died in that battle. With us today to talk about the border is a guy who knows it very well. Neville Cramer, retired special agent, INS, is our guest this week on Newsmaker Sunday, and we'll get into the Terry story in a minute. But I just want to let people know your experience so that you're going to learn a lot from this guy. I certainly have. How many years doing this? You're retired now, but how many years?
John, a total of 26 and a half. I started in the U.S. Border Patrol in Eagle Pass, Texas, and then served throughout the United States for the next 25 years as a special agent, supervisory agent, and headquarters with the Immigration and Naturalization Service.
Was it better in the past when we let people kind of come and go to do seasonal work in the border? As we've secured it, we've created now a whole new host of problems. It's become more dangerous. The paths that the immigrants and their smugglers use have narrowed. Now they're fighting for control over these, and it's become a very bloody, deadly place.
Well, for many different reasons. It's not just that we had it easy, that it was more open in the past. It's not just that. First of all, the type of individuals coming into the United States has changed. We have significant numbers of gang members that are coming across. The drug dealing is much more dangerous, and it's much more dangerous than it was in the past. Back when I first started in the patrol, John, we were mostly dealing with agriculture workers and dishwashers and landscapers coming across. That's not what's happening today. There are those coming across, but there's significantly other types of criminals, the possibility of terrorists coming across that border, and it's with the increased enforcement in the high traffic areas, you're absolutely right. They have sent the loads of aliens and loads of drugs into the uninhabited areas. And
that's Arizona.
That's Arizona, absolutely.
And New Mexico would be the other place, but New Mexico doesn't have the freeway access, the highway access, the roads. Topography is different. This is why when you pinch it off in Texas, you pinch it off in California. New Mexico, topography is different and a little more tricky. Arizona becomes the default place to go, right?
Yes. Absolutely, and several places in Arizona have been determined. They've been very successful coming across the Arizona border because of the topography, as you mentioned. You have an Indian reservation down on the southern border, which adds other difficulties to it, and they have simply moved towards Arizona. But take my word for it, Texas is not out of the woods yet either. I mean, there's significant activity in Texas, New Mexico, California still has areas where there's significant smuggling. So
we're going to take you back to what happened to Agent Brian Terry, again 40 years old, who was killed not far from Nogales. Just your thoughts on that when you heard about it, and we'll get into the particulars of it after the piece, but just your general sense of how dangerous it's become.
Well, he was part of a Border Patrol Tactical Operations Unit called BORTAC, and that is not just a standard group of Border Patrol agents patrolling the Mexican border. This is a highly trained group of individuals, and they were there for a reason. And more than likely, from what I've heard and I've talked to individuals, they knew that there was a ripoff coming. And they sent BORTAC in there.
You mean a drug?
A drug ripoff.
Somebody ripping off the cartel.
Yes.
Another cartel ripping off another cartel.
Could be another cartel, or it could be just individuals in the United States that know that there's a drug load coming across, and this is an area where it's going to be taken, and they simply decided to rip it off. They don't necessarily have to be associated with a drug cartel. They're simply looking to rip off the drugs knowing that it's coming. So I have an idea that BORTAC knew that this operation was going to take place in that area. They went down there, they were waiting for it, and it turned out to be bigger and a lot more violent than they expected it to be.
Let's take you to that. This is going to be tape number 6, and we'll take you back to the death of Border Agent Brian Terry.
Border Patrol agents searching today for the gunman who killed one of their own. Agent Brian Terry was shot to death late last night during a shootout near Nogales.
This is a stark reminder of the realities that we face each and every day in protecting this border and protecting our communities. There are people out there that wake up every day with nothing else on their mind but to do harm to the citizens of this country and our way of life.
Terry was part of a team of agents patrolling a remote smuggling corridor. His unit got into a gun battle with a group of 5 armed men. A union leader says those gunmen were likely bandits, known to target illegal immigrants, robbing and sometimes sexually assaulting them. After the shooting, 4 men were arrested right away, and officers spent the day searching for a 5th man. Terry's fellow agents say his death will not deter them.
We will continue to stand firm in our commitment to our mission.
No other agents were hurt in the shootout, and at this point, investigators aren't giving out much background information on the men they now have in custody.
Again, back with Neville Cramer, our guest. He is retired Special Agent INS. Any more information on that you've learned or that you can share with us about what may have happened there?
No, I just think that when the FBI finishes their investigation, they have primary jurisdiction over it. I think we'll find out that mistakes were made and that the agent should have had considerable more backup than they had in that area, knowing that there was going to be some kind of a ripoff.
Would you get into this now if you were a younger man? Would you get into this line of work as you did, what, 30 years ago? Would you do it again?
Yes, I would. I would, John. The individuals in law enforcement have something within them that make them dedicated to the profession. They know it's dangerous. They know they're going to be put in this kind of a situation. I've been in these situations myself. And it's just part of your job. And you take it. You hope that your training is good enough to keep you alive and to keep you safe. And you go out there and do the best job you know how.
This cuts across all administrations, but is there always a feeling with you guys on the ground that there's a disconnect from what they're deciding, the politicians in Washington, and what's going on the ground?
Well, I've spoken to Border Patrol agents and inspectors throughout the country because I travel internationally and I speak with them all the time. And it is a disconnect, and it has been going on for 35 years. And they are as upset about it today as they were when I first got into it. And we were complaining about it all the time. So, yes, that disconnect remains, and it's simply between the politicians and the people that have to do the job.
And you've written a book about this, and you should hold it up because we might as well get it out there. This is Immigration Chaos. You kind of wrote about what you learned. Hold it up, and I don't know where you can get it now. Where can you get it?
Well, you get it at major bookstores. They'll have it or order it for you, or you can go to immigrationchaos.com and order it directly from me. What's
the bottom line of the book? What caused you to write it, and what is your, I guess, your thesis statement of the book? What are you trying to get out there?
The book is divided into 2 parts. The problems, why we have them, which very few people understand, the inner workings of immigration and the Congress and what happens in Washington. And the second part of the book is the most interesting because I talk about real solutions to the problems. I'm not talking about these pontifications that come out from the congressmen and the senators about, do well and go forward. These solutions that are presented here have to do with our government, where they failed, and how we can actually fix them and fix our entire immigration process.
Is there anybody in Washington who gets it that you would say this guy or this woman is closest to it, having it figured out? Who would it be?
No, I know of no single individual. No.
Why is that?
Well, first of all, it's a very, very complicated issue. It is multifaceted as far as the legal immigration, illegal immigration, the border, employer sanctions, amnesty. You've got all these different things that are going on. And the problem is that the law is like the tax law. It's several hundred pages, 1,000 pages, and no one has the time to actually read it and understand how the law works and doesn't work. And that's the problem in Washington. No one takes the time to actually study this. They don't hire people who have significant backgrounds in this business. Take a look at, I won't use any specific examples, but there's a person running one of the major immigration agencies right now who has absolutely no background whatsoever in either customs or immigration. They're a political appointee. Absolutely.
They're a political hack.
They don't have a clue, John.
All right. To show, and you know this, how clever these guys, let's go to tape number 2. This discovered in Nogales last week. It's a drug tunnel. And when we talk about fences, they will always figure out, I mean, you build a 9-foot fence, these guys will build a 10-foot ladder. I mean, we know this. These guys found a drug tunnel stretching from the Mexico border to a metered parking space in Arizona where the vehicles would pull up. They had false bottoms in the vehicles. You saw the manhole. And they would shove the dope right inside and go on their merry way. How do you stop that stuff?
Well, you try, but that's ingenious to say the least.
It shows you how much money's involved. I mean, to start working on tunnels, and some of these have been elaborate.
Tunnels. We have submarines coming from Colombia with drug
ultralight aircraft over the border.
That's absolutely right, John. We have to remember that there's two parts to this. There's the drug smuggling into the United States, and there's the insatiable desire for drugs within the United States. And it's the same thing with illegal immigration. You have desires for cheap labor, and you have people coming across. You've got to deal with both of those. You've got to deal with both the desire to have the drugs and the illegal immigrants in the country, and then you have to deal with the people that are smuggling it over here.
Let's start with the first one, on drugs. Do you believe legalizing drugs in this country would help this problem?
Well, I would say drugs in total, but yes, I'm in favor of legalizing certain drugs. Absolutely. I think we've lost that war. We don't fight. Well, I think the government says we're fighting a war, John, and we're not. Now, a lot of people will say, you're crazy, Neville, advocating the legalization of something like marijuana. Why do we continue to go down this path? It's failure.
Spending $50 billion a year on it.
It's failure. We have a desire amongst people who are my age and have grown up with this stuff to have it. Didn't we learn anything from Prohibition? So, and the bottom line is people say to me, well, Neville, you're crazy. We're going to have drugs in the schoolyard. We already have drugs in the schoolyard, John. So, I mean, let's back off realistically and look at this thing and try to legalize it and bring it under control.
And anybody who wants to get marijuana, who's really wants to get it, they can find it easily, right anywhere. Phoenix, Scottsdale, it doesn't matter. They can find it easily. So you're saying it's kind of a sham.
I'm saying if we're going to fight a war against drugs, let's fight the war. If we're not, then let's do something that does work, and that would be legalization of the drug.
Let's talk about labor, because you talked about that as another component. What's your sense of how we need to go in that direction in terms of talk about an insatiable desire for cheap labor over here? We've got it. This is part of why the politicians know they need these workers, so they don't really want to close the border.
This is the easiest solution that the United States could do to solve this problem. We need E-Verify, which is a verification system. I was originally involved in the building of the predecessor to it, mandated for all employers. They all have to use this system, and you have a cadre of immigration officers in the interior of the United States that go after employers who are non-compliant. And you fine them $25,000, $30,000 per employee, and you'll have employers who use that system. However, you also have to make the system so that it works and that it's accurate.
So the current E-Verify, the problem with it is it will tell you if you go in for a job and you're illegal, but you've got a Social Security card, it will tell them whether that is a good Social Security card, whether it's valid. But it won't tell you, E-Verify, whether you're the guy on the card. That's one of the problems.
That's one of the problems, but E-Verify, John, works. If you look at the statistics about this program, it works. And that's what the employment community does not want. They don't want a system that works. They want to complain about it. It works. Take my word for it.
Would it be better to have a biometric card where you absolutely know that Neville Cramer is Neville Cramer?
Well, of course, there's a lot of things we could do, but how about having to give 330 million people biometric cards? That's an enormous task. For right now, let's implement E-Verify.
And really implement it.
And really implement it, but then there's another part to it. If we have a need for a particular type of labor in this country, we need to bring it in.
Green cards.
We need to bring it in. Not green cards, temporary non-immigrant visas. Green cards mean you have the right to stay here forever. Temporary, guest worker, whatever you want to call it, non-immigrant visas, give those in a much greater amount than we give right now.
How do you make sure they leave when they're supposed to leave?
You use E-Verify to do that, and the way you do it is that if they have a number that they're working with, you take that number out of the database as an active number. And if they are required, the employers are required to verify those numbers with significant penalties if they don't. The aliens will find out they can't get a job.
And then they'll go home.
And they'll
self-deport.
Yes.
Okay.
In most cases, they will.
Back with Neville Cramer, who is retired special agent, INS. Back on Newsmaker Sunday, talking immigration.